Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to be here. Does anyone else remember when this wasn't a profession? It wasn't a proper job. And now look at us. We've got a conference and everything. And it's global. So I was expecting when I got that invite to be able to go to New York or, East London is lovely, Chancellor. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so I have the honour and privilege of being the Strategic Lead for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion for the Mayor of London. An amazing mayor. I hope you're proud of your mayor. I hope some of you voted for your mayor. You have a feminist mayor who is a Muslim and attended Gay Pride this year. Something to be incredibly proud of, given the current state of the world. And this week launched the London Plan. Really exciting document. It isn't really, it's quite boring and dull, but it contains lots of interesting things that you hopefully have seen highlighted in the press. We've got huge support for the LGBT infrastructure of London. We've had a whole article on toilets and the need for more accessible toilets and changing places toilets and gender neutral toilets. And who knew toilets were so exciting? But they are. So I've been working on the Mayor's Diversity and Inclusion strategy for the last 9 months. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of the flavour of that because we're here to talk about inclusive growth. That was the headline for the conference, but also a little bit about how I use data and evidence and all the transparency that we're trying to build into that work. So, you know, there's been a lot of progress since I started this job 20 odd years ago, and I had that first lovely boss called Arun Batra. Since then, you know, a huge amount of progress, especially enshrining all the things that matter to us into legal rights. But that would be missing the point if we didn't say that more recently, if anything, you know, things haven't just stood still, but they've gone backwards in certain areas. Despite the financial crash, the gap between the rich and the poor has increased. So we know that in '98, on average, the highest earners were paid 47 times that of the lowest. By 2015, the equivalent gap was 128 times more. So things have got worse in many ways. Around the globe, elections, referendums have delivered some seismic shocks to folk like us who do this work. Especially any of us who were daft enough to think that this was a one-way, you know, journey of progress. In London since June 2016, hate crimes have dramatically increased. And that's not just race crimes, hate crimes to do with faith, that's to do with disability as well, and LGBT. You know, what's that about? So, but on a slightly more positive note, I wanted to give you just an overview of the Mayor's vision on diversity and inclusion. And it's not that slide. So, it's a brilliant slide and it's a picture. And I don't know if Karen's around and wants to get the slide into the pack, but if not, don't worry, because it's like a really good bit of marketing for the strategy that's coming out in January, because now you'll be desperately keen to see the picture, won't you? Imagine a lovely picture, and I'll tell you what it's about. So I had a graphic illustrator follow me around for the year and follow me around for consultations that we did with every part of London's diverse communities, capturing the really important things for Londoners. And this is what came through. And they echo some of the themes we've heard already, that we have to remain fundamentally wedded to equality and tackling discrimination on the grounds of those issues protected by legislation. That need has not gone away. And that remains absolutely fundamental to the Mayor's vision here. But we know that if we ignore other issues of diversity, this won't work either. So we have to think in this strategy, which is a citywide strategy, about the issues that affect care leavers and carers and ex-offenders. And also, really importantly for me, issues of class or class. And socioeconomic status, they really matter. And if we don't think about that, we're missing the point about how to do diversity and inclusion in 2017. That's the big difference. We've looked for a long time, those of us who've done this work, at this as a Noah's Ark approach for a very long time. You know, if we can have 2 of everything, we'll have sorted it. And we missed the point, as Arun's slide demonstrated, that without inclusion in a company or in social integration in a city, we don't harness that diversity, we don't deliver any of the benefit. So the Mayor's vision on social integration, which was the last bit of my very long title, is all about understanding that central pillar of equality, but adding on the ideas of participation and belonging. They're absolutely fundamentally important to delivering a successful global city, a mega city of London. It's going to be over 10 million inhabitants very soon. But all of the strategy, when you see it, because I hope somebody will read it. I never want to read it ever again once it's finished, but hopefully somebody out there might, is evidence-based. That matters because we need to get this right, but it also matters because we have a duty to foster good relations. And in 2017, doing this D&I stuff, we have to be clear that what we do is evidence-based. We cannot any longer argue for things that, you know, may be important or may be right or may be true. We have to stick to one true version of the facts. Not easy in this time of fake news. I promised myself I wouldn't go there. But the evidence tells us a really stark picture in London. There is some really intractable issues. I was working for a room in the London Development Agency 10 years ago. And when I took over for this mayor, I looked back at some of the work we'd done, and some of the stuff hasn't changed. So the employment rates for disabled people remain in London at 51%, compared with 78% of the non-disabled population. The maternal employment rate is 60% in London compared with 68% in the UK. We know that black university graduates are twice as likely as white university graduates to remain unemployed. But as we also mentioned earlier, the deficit model doesn't get us far enough. We have to look at what the dividend is and what the benefit is. I was listening, Simon. And that's, you know, things like we know that the migrants that are in London are contributing 83 billion to London's economy. That's including our EU migrants. So we use this evidence to deliver this strategy and to create this strategy that I hope you'll read. I'm nearly finished. But what I just wanted to stress was a couple of the other key points about how I've changed my thinking, what I've been learning about how we do this work. And one is the fundamental importance of intersectionality, a word I never want to use, but I haven't found a better one yet. But we have to look at people's complex, complicated, unique, layered, inclusive diversity within each person. I use the social model and I use evidence of the barriers that we face. So yes, we can look at what we have in common and try to, you know, look at that difference, but we all face common barriers. And that's unifying common barriers that help us to bring this agenda together. So when we look at issues like flexible working, getting that right in London and getting that right for people, it's a benefit to disabled people, it's a benefit to carers, it's a benefit to strange people that like to go to the gym. You know, it's a benefit to everyone, that flexible working, once we've delivered it. And finally, I think that the key point that the beautiful picture shows is that that looking at those common barriers, we recognise what the fantastic Jo Cox taught us is that we have more in common than that which divides us. And when we found our vision and our work on that, I think we're all going to move forward better together. I have one final slide, but that's not there either. That's gone as well. It's okay, it's brilliant, it's fantastic. But it was just to let you know that next year, 2018, marks the centenary of the passing of the Representation of the People Act, if you didn't know that, which gave some women, only those of a certain class, the right to vote. And in this 2018 year, the Mayor will be marking that with a new statue of Millicent Fawcett in Parliament Square. Really exciting, the first ever monument of a woman to stand within the iconic central London location. And Millicent was an amazing campaigner. And there she is. Fantastic, thank you, Dame Millicent. And she said something very similar to Jo Cox. Forgive me, I've slightly adapted it just to make it very 2017. But I just want to end with what draws men and women, and those who define as non-binary, together, is stronger than the brutality and tyranny which drive them apart. Thank you very much.